Good morning, dear friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for being here and gathering, coming together to talk and free associate and imagine and create and recreate and reaffirm our commitment to education, to the arts, and to human life and life beyond human life. Welcome to the new era, the post-COVID era. We're not finished with COVID. It's not finished with us. But it's here to announce a new era in human history. That announcement is continued by the climate emergency. The message is to the human race, wake up. We all have to live differently from now on. This huge crisis is here to say, wake up. Millions of people have died. Every morning brings us unbearable news of unnecessary suffering. The news from planet Earth is so serious right now. How many people have to die? How many species have to become extinct before we realize it's urgent? We have to change not just someday, now. We have 10 years maybe. The COVID has come here to make it very clear where the areas of injustice, inequality, human and environmental degradation are located. Those have been the centers of the coronavirus fatalities. That's a message from the planet to say this level of structural racism and structural inequality and environmental abuse cannot continue. It takes a crisis to actually make human beings finally step into the change that has been needed. You don't have a drinking problem until finally you hit the wall. Finally, it's such a disaster. You crash and you say, I have to begin again. And I have to pick myself up from despair, from heartbreak, from delusion, from denial, and take the positive steps into a new life. And I have to be critical and loving to myself. And I can't make the changes that need to be made alone. We need to work together. Anytime you're trying to overcome addiction, you need friends. We all have to do it together. And so now is the time for us to all be working together, for us to reimagine educational structures, not in the traditional, standardized, Western European, training to be a colonial administrator style of education, which is about individual achievement. But in fact, individual achievement is not the message at this time in our lives. It's always actually been about collective support, mutual support, knowledge held by communities, wisdom held by communities, love, healing energy supported and held by communities. Everything that any of us is everything that everybody has ever given us. None of us have ever accomplished anything alone, ever. We are everything we have been offered. And that's the planet offering us another day of life with water, with air. That's plants and animals sacrificing themselves and giving their lives so we have one more day on earth. We're in this system of offering, and what are we offering? With climate emergency and with COVID, thank God there is high-level science. Thank God there's high-level science. But high-level science alone is not the question, because both the climate emergency and the COVID are demanding that we rethink how we treat the planet, how we treat the earth, how we treat the water, how we treat the air, how we treat the animals, how we treat the plants, and how we treat each other. The deep solutions to the climate emergency are human. The climate story is not a story of science and big technology. It's a science of human beings beginning to live with humility, with grace, with respect, with kindness. And with new rituals, new balances, new restraint, and new courage. We are very privileged to have a brilliant next generation, and this next generation has to tackle all the things that we have been unable to tackle until this critical moment. And so we have to empower them with everything we can offer them. We have to offer them all the love, all the support. You know, there's a tradition that education also is involved with hard work and critique and a kind of aggressive breaking people down. Obviously, this is not what we're doing. We need to rediscover, reaffirm, and sustain our joy, our sense that we're doing this with so much love, so much high spirits, so much energy and positive energy in the face of tragedy and disaster and despair and nightmare statistics. The beautiful thing about the humanities is that they don't function the way science does with things that can be quantified. What we're dealing with is things that have no quantity. How much you love your grandmother, how much your grandmother loves you, how much courage exists, how much generosity exists. An infinite amount, actually. You have all the courage you will ever need. You will have all the generosity you will ever need. You will have all the compassion you will ever need. It's at your fingertips. And meanwhile, as we work together, we'll have all the wisdom that we will ever need. What we do as artists is we solve problems creatively. And the arts right now are in the forefront of addressing climate change. And yes, after the vaccines, the COVID. Because the COVID is about quality of life. The COVID is not just coming back into your body after a spell in the ICU. The COVID is quality of life every day. We've seen the populations that have been at greatest risk to the COVID. And their risk is something they've been carrying for generations. This is where we have to make meaningful change. That is the message of this year on Earth. What do we have to work with? We have music. Music which suggests that we're sharing a heartbeat. COVID and the climate emergency have said, you people, you human beings, you have to stop working as this country, that country, this flag, this neighborhood, that neighborhood. You people have to work together. Music is about that space of sharing heartbeat, that space of sharing dreams, that space of sharing aspiration, that space of sharing a reach towards what we have not yet touched. Music is also that gesture of invisible pleasure that says, okay, stop clinging to the material world and reach towards the invisible, reach towards the realities that have yet to appear. Everything we're reaching towards that we have not yet seen. That's the amazing moment that we're living in, because everything we need to reach towards, we haven't seen yet. And in a period of division, of rage, of so much violence, how do we reach and touch the human heart? Yes, other people's hearts, but also our own. How do we hear our own heart? How does a heart speak? Dance. A heart speaks through movement. Movement is, in fact, the very basis of life. We don't have to be stuck in these institutional situations where we're trapped in a world of obstacles. In fact, movement is what it's about. Dance is telling us that we are moving, our lives are moving, everything in the world is moving at every moment. Nothing is stuck or trapped. Everything is here to move, to change, to transform. And in dance, we watch a gesture move through a human body and move through a community. That shared gesture, which is not just a thought, it's an action. Can we go from thought to action? And visual art, of course, is about the vision, holding the vision out front. What are we looking towards? What do we not see yet? Take our eyes off our feet and look towards the mountains, which is where we are going. This is where we are, but where do we want to be? Most people can't imagine anything other than what's already in front of them. Our role as artists is to create things, help people see the world that's not yet here. And of course, with film, that vision is in motion. That vision is also in motion. It's about transformation. And what we're talking about in the visual art is not what things look like from the outside, but what things look like from the inside. What are the invisible qualities that you could only see if you're looking with insight? Insight, which is, in fact, the way we meet the crisis. Theater, of course, is that we get everybody together. Theater is about how do we search for truth together. Not one person's truth, another person's truth, but, excuse me, a truth that those two people can discover together and agree upon. A complex, rich, life-giving truth. What is it to find new truths and shared truths, not alone, but together? And what does it mean in theater to invite not just a group of people who are like each other, but really different people from really different situations, from different histories, from different cultures, from different trajectories, and say, meet each other, be together. Share the space. Share your lives. Let's find what divides us, and let's find what we share. What we're looking for is equality. That is the single greatest crying need of this world. How do we recognize, as it says in a beautiful Buddhist sutra, holy liberation is the equality of all things, the human and the non-human. Equality. Equality is what we're searching for. You can't demonstrate equality economically, politically, but you can demonstrate equality culturally. Humanity needs to see and taste and experience equality. This is what we're here for. And of course, architecture is about making the structures of equality, the relationships, understanding that everything we're struggling with is structural. What we are looking for is an end to structural racism, an end to structural inequality, and the beginning of structures of equality. Of course, the art forms of farming and cooking. There's so many more art forms. Art is about doing anything beautifully, with skill, with love, with meaning. At this moment, we need that skill, we need that love, and we need the abiding presence of beauty. Because, of course, the media wants to convince you that the only thing that exists is the ugliness. But in fact, the beauty so far outweighs the tragedy. We need to refresh ourselves. We need to refresh our vision. We need to refresh our heart. We need to refresh our compassion. And we also need to recognize that the arts are not about the arts. The arts are about health and well-being. The arts go hand in hand with medicine. And in this new period where the arts are being defunded everywhere, we need to fund the arts as health, justice, business, environment. The arts need to have a presence in every one of these fields. These fields need to be much more deeply humanized. We need to realize that wholeness and well-being is social, it's political, it's economic, it's personal, it's environmental. All of these things need to come together for a larger image of wellness. Culture is what brings all of those things together, holds them, nurtures them. We're talking about an understanding that does come from farming, which is basically watching things grow, knowing what it is to plant things, understanding what a seed is. A seed does not look like a human being, like a tree, but it becomes a tree. A seed doesn't look like a human being. And then, amazingly, human beings, like seeds becoming trees, human beings change. Who somebody was today is not who they're going to be tomorrow. Let's create the space of change and transformation. And as you do with a crop or with a child, you have to support them every day. You can't say, oh, I fed my kids last week, they've eaten. You have to say, they're fine. It's like every single day you have to go back to them. Every single day checking, every single day offering whatever it is we need to offer them. But the same can be said for our communities, for our democracies, for our environments, for our aspirations. That large culture of sharing, that culture of care, that culture of attention, that culture of courage, that culture of joy and renewal and repair Nothing's a thing. A human being isn't just broken. All of us are broken so many times. All of us have been hurt so many times. All of us are carrying so much pain, so much sense of injustice, so much frustration, so much failure, so much hurt and so much anger with ourselves, and anger that we turn to the world around us. That has to be healed. And so a crucial part of education is not taking tests and learning facts, although facts are definitely preferable to lies. But what we need to learn and teach and share is how to be healers of ourselves and of others. And how, if something's missing from our lives, something's missing from our society, something's missing, something that's a question of justice or a question of the environment or a question of fairness or a question of truth, please make this an art project. Because as artists, we can begin to gather in a safe space, and a creative space, and an open space, all the different voices that need to be present in any solution. We can enter the justice system not just with judges and lawyers, but with also the people who've been targeted by the justice system, who of course are not going to speak in court because they're too proud to speak or too damaged. How do we hear the voices of people whose voices have not been heard? How do we learn to listen completely differently? Artists have to set the example and open the new paths. I would just say, you can hear the whole planet and the whole population of this earth crying out for change. Institutions, of course, are by definition terrified of change. They're pulling back or hanging on. Artists are not terrified of change. Artists are actually the change agents. Art can demonstrate, not later, but now, what change looks like, what change feels like, how change moves, what transformation transforms. What is the sound of change? What is the energy of change? That's why the arts are here. Your students are the bearers of change at a moment in time, which is about change. Let us honor them. Let us offer them everything we can offer them. And let us listen to them. And let us set them up in a world of plurality, multiplicity, endlessly shifting realities that are changing before our very eyes. The hard work of change, the urgency of change, but also the pleasure, the joy, the relief, the satisfaction. I just have to thank everybody here today for the depth of your work, for your heartfelt commitment to a new generation, and to your understanding that in whatever structures we find ourselves, we are there to help transform those structures. And we're there to empower those human beings in every way, the friends and the enemies, the human and the non-human, and of course, ourselves. Because we're all learning. Right now, it's amazing to be alive because truly nobody knows what's next. You know, in the old days, you could speak to people and they'd say, oh yes, I know. Right now, we're in this amazing time. Nobody knows. We have to move forward together. Thank you so much.